I am excited to welcome today's guest on Fertile Frequencies, episode 20, Dr. Katie Lee. Her fertility journey is so incredibly empowering. I just absolutely loved this conversation with Katie, and I know that you are going to get so much out of it as well. It's so powerful how a fertility journey can lead you to the bigger part of your overall journey. And this is exactly what Dr. Katie Lee's journey did. Dr. Katie Lee is a dentist and entrepreneur. She is an author based in Aurora, Colorado. Just to give you more information about the incredible work that Dr. Lee is doing, she is the founder of the Collective Health Society, which is a fully integrative functional dental and medical center dedicated to enhancing patients' oral systemic health, including for fertility care. She has established the Collective Education Society, a training center that provides both didactic and hands-on learning for clinicians. Dr. Lee serves as the Chief Clinical Advisor for the Dental Innovation Alliance, a venture capital group supporting technology companies in the dental industry. She also consults with multiple dental technology companies focused on improving the clinical experience and patient outcomes. As a member of NASA's Analysis Working Group, she contributes to clinical recommendations aimed at protecting astronauts' oral microbiome during space travel. She graduated in 2010 from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Dr. Lee was a partner in more than 80 dental practices across the U.S. and served as a clinical partner overseeing operations in 5 states. She is the author of Saved by the Mouth, a book designed to educate both patients and clinicians on the critical role of oral health. Dr. Lee has been recognized with numerous accolades, in top 40 under 40 dentists in America, an International Woman of the Year in Dentistry. A sought-after speaker, she has been featured on local Fox and NBC News segments, discussing the importance of oral health. Do you feel like there is way more to your success than the tired, worn-out idea that your fertility is only about your physical body? Well, beautiful mama, you're in the right place. Welcome to Fertile Frequencies Radio, the radio show created for you to empower you on your fertility journey and finally give you a baby. Join me, Lindsay Goodwin, natural reproductive medicine and energetic spiritual fertility expert, as we clear away the doubts, reframe the struggles into fertile wins, and turn the what-ifs into big celebrations. Together, we'll unlock the tools to manifest your healthy pregnancy and baby. Fertile Frequencies Radio, your infinite fertile possibilities, begins now. Welcome back to Fertile Frequencies Radio. I'm so excited for my guest today. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So let's just dive right in. I want to hear more about your fertility journey. I know that we were just talking before I started recording that you actually went through a surrogate. And it's very interesting because I've been attracting a lot of clients recently that I know will be listening to this. So your story is perfectly timed to be able to help them that they are considering surrogates. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about just where you want to start in your fertility journey, but definitely talking about the surrogacy too.
Sure. So I started going down the fertility route at about age 34. I started doing all of the tests, and I was plagued by unexplained infertility, which so many, high achieving professionals, especially in healthcare, are kind of plagued by this diagnosis. So we did the full gamut of tests, and other than me just showing my age, I really didn't have any sort of diagnosis. Everything was normal for my age at 34. but because of me being super impatient and high achieving, and also just being really focused on my career, I chose to go down the route of doing fertility treatments, just because I kind of wanted to get the show on the road, right? I knew I was getting older and didn't have much time to spare. So I started first just by doing some ovulation induction medications. And I was able to get pregnant a couple times off of those, but miscarried both times. And after the second miscarriage that way, I said, okay, well, let's just try and bypass humanity and go down the IVF route. We'll make sure the embryo is perfectly healthy and genetically sound before we put it in, so I don't have to worry about these miscarriages anymore. So I started doing the IVF route, and I did 6 rounds of IVF over 6 years. Did multiple egg retrievals, had some euploid embryos, and every time we put them in, we would achieve heartbeats. Which after you get a heartbeat with a euploid embryo, I think the chances of miscarriage are like less than 5%. I mean, it's really low. And I would always get to around 8 or 10 weeks, and I would miscarry. And they always seemed to happen in my dental office. And so at the time I was practicing dentistry, I didn't slow down whatsoever. And I was told by my reproductive endocrinologist I didn't need to. This is science, this is biology. You can still do what you always do. And I both times miscarried in the sterilization area of my dental clinic. And at the time I was running over 80 practices around the country, and overseeing 5 regions, and was doing all these things. And my last go around of trying, we put in the euploid embryo. I did have a massive bleeding session one day in my dental office, but the baby was still doing okay when we went and got him checked. And I went in for, this was like around 7 weeks. And then I went back around my 12-week mark to do my graduation ultrasound before they send you back to your OBGYN. My husband and I had booked a trip to St. Lucia because it was his birthday and my birthday. And then we were celebrating finally getting, to a second trimester. And so I chose to go to the doctor by myself that day because I said, this is just a routine scan. We're going to graduate, and then I'll meet you at the airport and we'll go on our trip. And I got to the doctor's office, they did the scan, and I could just tell by her face that something wasn't right. And she said, I can't find the heartbeat. And so I had asked the doctor, what should I do? And he said, well, we wouldn't do a D&C till next week anyway. So why don't you go ahead and go on your trip, try and process all of this. We'll do a D&C when you get back, but take all your medications with you, so that way you're not miscarrying in a foreign country. And I said, okay. So we go to St. Lucia, tried to make the best of it. And the night before we flew back, a volcano erupted on the island just north of St. Lucia and covered the sky in ash. And so we could not get back for, I think it was like 5 to 7 days. I can't remember which one it is, because you can't fly airplanes in ash. It'll make the airplanes crash. Yeah. And so when I got back, we rushed right in to have the D&C, and I bled out on the table. I coded. They had to give me clotting factors, blood transfusion. And I used to joke that I was a pro at D&Cs because I had four. And they usually take 10 or 15 minutes. And this time I was in there for several hours. And I pulled through, but that was just a really scary wake up call for me. And so at that time, I kind of said, okay, well, I'm not going to, clearly I can't do this, right? Something is not working with me. I'm miscarrying euploid embryos. And so that was during COVID, around 2020. And so we had thought, okay, well, we have 1 embryo left. This is our last chance. I'm not going to do any more egg retrievals. Let's try and do a surrogate. And so I'd reached out to a bunch of surrogacy agencies. And because of COVID, I guess everyone was trying to have babies, but surrogates were in high demand. And the way that the contracts work most of the time is that for the fee that you pay a surrogate, they get 2 chances to carry your embryo. So you can either put 2 in at the beginning or 2 consecutive tries for their fee. And so I was told by multiple agencies that since I only had 1 embryo, and since surrogates were in high demand, the chances of someone wanting to carry my embryo was slim to none. And that was just like to hear that no one would want to carry, uh, I mean, that was horrific. And so I just decided like, okay, this is done. This is just not going to happen. And so we kept, I'll call him Rome because that's his name. We kept Rome on ice. But in my mind, it was just, we're done with this. And then I would say it was probably about maybe 9 months later or so. It was December of 2022, 2021. I had said, honey, I think I might be open to having a surrogate now. And that was like all I said. And he knew better than to like say anything at that point, right? Just like, let me get it out.
Right.
And the very next day, someone that used to work for me had reached out to me. She hadn't worked for me for like 5 years. And she said, hey, I'm thinking about being a surrogate. And I was going to put my name in with an agency. But I remember when I worked with you that you were having some trouble having a kid. So if you would ever be open to it, I would love to be your surrogate. And I was just like, I believe in science. And clearly I had done all the science, right? And science did not work. And so I said, okay, well, let me listen to the sign. And we did. And Rome is here and he's 19 months. And yeah, he's perfect.
That's absolutely amazing, Dr. Katie. And I just congratulations on Rome being here. And, how amazing that universal intervention, whatever we want to call it, God or source energy, coming in and really sending that person to you that was from your past through a past experience, an employee that you had, someone that worked with you, and she just happened to think about doing surrogacy. And so you must have at some point, I know that you'd mentioned to your partner that you were interested in surrogacy. So was this before, did she reach out to you? I'm just curious, just on the timeline of how the universe brought this to you. Were you thinking about the surrogacy before she reached out, or did she reach out and then you were interested in that?
So I had said it the night before that I was interested in surrogacy, and she reached out the next day. And it's funny because when I was growing up, I used to always say, um, I only want one kid and I want to adopt. And then it was, I only want one kid, but I want a surrogate. So I have said that since I was really young. And my husband, what's interesting is on our first date, he was like, I was put on this planet to be a father. So, usually it's the woman saying that, right? But he was like, I was put on this planet to be a father. And so, I think I was really trying to fulfill, some of his dreams and goals. But looking back, it's almost like I've known from a young age that like, this is what I was going to need to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, so very intuitive. I'm sure that you would agree that this journey has really put you in alignment with trusting yourself more and really
Yeah.
listening to those internal nudges. They have the intuition of really guiding you. And I just have to say that, really what happened is that you made a decision of something that you probably were more resistant to, especially of someone that is such an achiever. You've done so much in your life, you've helped so many people. You've created lots of business, successful business for yourself. You've done a lot in your life. And so you've always been able to get things done. This was something you couldn't control. Like it was going to be the way it's the way it is. It's part of your life purpose, part of your journey, part of your son's journey. We also have to remember with our children that they also have their own agenda of how they want to come into the physical reality. And so Rome, he wanted to come in this way. This is what he wanted, and you always knew as a child, okay, I'm going to have one child and that's what's meant for you. So it's very interesting how it just when we let go of trying to have resistance about something that isn't typically what we would have seen for our journey, that's exactly what happened with you as you finally let the walls down and this subconscious block that you had and let the walls down. Universe said, done. We're going to make this happen. And that's what happened. And it's so incredible. And again, congratulations. But also, I'm so curious to know about how this has impacted what you do for others and your fertility journey.
Yeah. So I've been in the realm as a dentist and practicing more holistically, meaning oral systemic health, for a long time. And that was due to an accident that I had growing up, where I learned at a very young age just how much your oral health impacts your overall health. So I've always really been interested in that connection. And I started doing saliva testing or oral microbiome testing around 2013, 2014. And at the time, I had a husband and wife come into me, and I was only doing this testing at one of my clinics. And it wasn't even my main office yet, because my main office was so busy. I was doing this at a brand new clinic that I opened up because I felt like I had more time to kind of figure out how to implement this into the practice. And this young couple came in. They were sent to the office by an OBGYN, not to me specifically. She just said, go see a dentist. They were in their 20s, totally healthy, and they were just having trouble getting pregnant. And she said, well, I can't find a biological systemic reason that you can't get pregnant. You're very young, so we shouldn't do IVF and all this stuff. So maybe it's in your mouth, go see your dentist. And to this day, that's the only time I've been referred a patient by an OBGYN thinking that a fertility issue originated in the mouth. And I just so happen to have started doing saliva testing, like, I don't know, a month before. The universe tells you things, right? Yeah. And so I said, let's go ahead and test your saliva and see what's going on. And sure enough, both her and her husband had bacteria that directly affect fertility, directly affect conceiving and pregnancy outcomes that were present in the mouth. And so we treated both husband and wife, and within, I think, 3 months, they were pregnant. And so that was really an alarm bell that something was really here with saliva testing. But it wasn't until I went through my journey, which started in 2017, because I got married in 2016. So 2017 is really when I started looking at this, because when I was going through my fertility work, I was seeing the top reproductive endocrinologists in the country, but they took a very myopic approach to my healthcare. And the only alternative or holistic approach that they offered me was acupuncture, right? Acupuncture in the bed right before they do egg retrieval and implantation. That was it. And being a clinician myself, that's what I went with. The doctors are telling you this, they're the best in the country, this is what you do. And so when I started noticing that biology wasn't working, right, and definitely wasn't working for me, I started asking more questions of what else could be going on in my body, in my mind, that could be affecting fertility. But in the chaos of all of the loss, the ups and downs with I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant, I'm miscarrying, we're doing hormones again and running my businesses, I didn't have the time or space to actually give any effort into figuring that stuff out. And so it was really after when I started, we were going down the surrogacy path, and I started just pausing and trying to look around, like, what else could this be? And so that's when I started going down this route of energy and oral systemic health and microbiome testing. And so I'm a dentist, so I focus only on oral microbiome and fertility work, but then, partnering with other people like yourself, nutritionists, other healers, I think is really important for people to have a successful outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, so many messages for you. It's interesting how things just fall into place, but you have to be aware of it. And you have become very open and receptive to allowing these messages to fall in your lap, essentially. But people often, I know that I used to be this way as well, that before my spiritual awakening, that I wouldn't be paying attention. I wouldn't see the synchronicities. I wasn't open and receptive to it. And so, like the old saying goes, those that believe in miracles actually experience them. People that don't believe in them, do they experience miracles? Of course they do. Everybody does, but they might not think of it like that. It's just like, oh, that's just a fluke. No, it's not. Nothing ever happens by chance. You're always asking, the universe is always responding, but remembering that it's responding to you in the way of what you're actually feeling. So that's why the subconscious mind is so powerful. I have to say, Dr. Katie, that everything that you're saying, specifically when we talk about reproductive endocrinologists, I love science. So do you. But the thing is that we can't all be science. Not everything is proven. And to also, I'm not a fan of doctors having people go just for acupuncture before. I am a licensed acupuncturist, just before the embryo transfer and after. That is not how this works. I mean, because generally people, especially if you've been trying to conceive for a long time or you've had a lot of trauma like what you had, that you have a lot of stuff in your body that needs to come out. And so just doing like one session before and after, it just doesn't cut it. It's the same thing with hypnotherapy. It's the same thing with energy healing. It's like just like when a patient comes into your office, you're probably not seeing them just one time. You're really helping them. It's a treatment plan. It's giving them the opportunity to be able to really heal versus just we're just okay, we're just going to do this and then that's kind of it. That's not how this works. So I love what you're doing because it's so integrative and you have the mindset that's very integrative. So you are bringing lots of people to you that not only what you're thinking about, but you mentioned also having providers. I know that you have just started this health collective, and we do want to talk about that. But before I get into that, I want to know more about what do you think the biggest sort of, I don't want to say lesson because I don't really like that word, but what do you think that you have has been the biggest takeaway from your journey of your own specific fertility journey that you have brought to how you're helping your community and the world of those that are struggling with fertility obstacles?
For me, then like I said, I had been outwardly saying these things since I was a child, right? I'm going to have one kid. It's going to be via adoption or it's going to be via surrogate. Like I've always known what my outcome was going to be, but I tried to step outside of that and create a different scenario. And no matter how hard I pushed for that to come to fruition, it just never was going to be. And so, just, I think the biggest lesson for me is listening to that intuition and accepting that that's my path. And like, I probably can't change that, right? Unless the universe decides, that I'm going to have a different path. But I felt totally out of alignment during that process and during the whole thing. Like I felt like I was kind of two different beings trying to like smush smush both of the beings together, if that makes sense. And no matter how great biology and science are, like there's this whole energetic vibration frequency piece of it that has to be resolved as well. And if it's not resolved, it's no matter how much science or biology you throw at something, it's not going to work. And so for me moving forward, it's 100% accepting and standing in my truth and my intuition of like, this is what it is. And so I remember when we finally got pregnant with our son, I just remember praying and saying, if we are going to have our son, I will sell out all my businesses and I will stop and be his mom. And I remember it was like Thanksgiving time. And we got past the 12-week mark. And then 12-week mark. And then we had made it to the 20-week big scan where they check for, abnormalities and things like that. I was like, okay, I'm done. And I sold out of over 80 dental practices in a couple months.
Wow.
I was out. So I think it's just, you gotta align with what your core truth is and just not fight it. That was the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, do you feel that you were just doing way too much and that might have been part of what the universe and Rome was trying to tell you is that I'm not coming in until you make room for me?
So it's funny you say that because my long-term office manager, who's now my office manager at my new practice, he's always been a very intuitive force. He does Reiki on me, all of that. He used to tell me from the moment we started working together, like back in 2012. So this is way before Rome. He always said, you're going to have one baby. It's going to be a boy. He's going to have your personality, but look just like your husband. And anytime he would work on me, he'd say, oh yeah, he was here. He was running around my feet, kicking my feet, full of energy. And he would always tell me, like right around, if I was pregnant, he would do Reiki on me, or right after the miscarriage. And he would just be like, you don't have space. You don't have space. You don't have space. And I think it has more to do with I got to a point not where I was too busy, because I love being busy. I'm opening up this massive project that is more than what I was ever doing before. But I think I started serving the wrong thing. And so what I noticed was I was no longer serving myself. I began serving an organization or a CEO or someone else. And it wasn't their fault whatsoever. It was just I had lost control of serving myself. And then when you're that big, the only thing you can do is kind of sell out and you got to start again. Right. So I'm doing another big project. Again, I'm crazier. I'm busier now than I ever was, but I'm serving myself and I'm back to my core purpose. And so I feel much more in alignment than I did before.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I feel intuitively that you were serving more of an achievement. So when you said serving others, that's what it feels like the root of that was an achievement of what you thought you should be
Yeah,
versus you truly are. And
totally. I
so,
was addicted to achievement.
yeah.
I said that my past career was all about achievements versus purpose.
Well, just curious, what is your astrology sign?
I'm Aries through and through,
Oh,
through and through,
that explains a lot. The leader.
through and through.
Fiery leader. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to jump into astrology too much, but if you look at your North Node, that will actually tell you what you were in a past lifetime. So that will tell you more about what you're trying to not do in this lifetime, because that would be what you consider your karma. Now, your sun sign, like Aries, is part of that as well. But look at your North Node, because that will also give you more information on maybe some of those tendencies that you had before you had your spiritual awakening through your fertility journey. And so that just probably will give you more information, which is fun. I love being able to figure all this out. You're not going to figure everything out because we're not supposed to, but the more that you can understand about your soul blueprint, I call it, the more that you can really navigate your life and figure out more about your soul's purpose too, and how to really not repeat patterns as well that
Yeah.
you might have done in another
It's a
lifetime.
guide, right? I feel like any cheat
Good.
sheet we can get, I'll take. I see oh, what is she? She's a Tibetan astrologer, energy. I don't even know what to call her, but I see her every year on my birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she reads my birth chart and kind of guides me for the year. I love it.
That's great. I love that. Well, amazing. So, just I want to ask you if I feel like this is a question that a lot of people ask me. So, as someone that experienced 4 miscarriages, how do you feel about how did you heal from that? Is there things that come up from that? I'm asking you a lot of questions to give you ideas of what I'm looking for. And then, of course, whatever you're feeling too. Definitely talk about that. But how do you feel that it just wasn't the right time and that's why those babies didn't come through? Have you had any messages on that from spirit?
Um, I would say I still probably have so much work to do in that area in terms of healing from it. I don't think I've unpacked all of that yet. There's probably a lot more to uncover physically and emotionally. I do have a massage therapist that comes to my house about every 2 to 3 weeks. She's also a Reiki person. So
Yeah.
she does like a lot of healing energy and stuff over my womb when she comes. Um, because there's probably a lot of emotional stuff there. There's probably a lot of past life stuff there. A lot of maternal relationship stuff there that probably needs to be dealt with. I did do breath work. I was doing some breath work for a couple times, and I had this like incredible vision one time when I did breath work. We weren't even focusing on the miscarriages and this was before I had Rome. And I had a vision that came to me where I was like standing in this beautiful meadow with all these flowers, and all four of my babies came like, and they were like in a womb, like in a casing, if you will. And but then they were able to break through and we all hugged each other and stuff. But that's really the only kind of time that I've had a vision like that or had any kind of experience like that. But no, I probably have a lot more of work to push through there. But when you go through 4 miscarriages and then COVID happened, right, which was so traumatic, and all that stress, and then we had a surrogate, and then I sold all my businesses, and then I've been focused on raising my kid, and then this new project. You need space to go through this stuff, to give it enough respect, I think. And I don't quite have that space just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand. And things are about divine timing, just like
Mhm.
everything else that you've seen and how your journey has really unfolded and really has kind of like brought you back to when you were a kid and realizing who you truly are. And it's interesting because I share the same. And I often talk about that with people that, what were you like as a child? What were you interested in? What drove your soul? And so when you come on the other side of this, you've been in the dark and you come out and you've been neutralized by the light, it's like all those memories come back, and that's when you realize, oh, this is who I was when I came into this existence.
Mhm.
I'm letting go. I've let go of these limiting beliefs, of these patterns that I was taught that weren't even mine. They were taught by my family or society. I was really downloaded with information that really wasn't me to begin with. So, what I'm picking up on, just to give you a little bit of information of what you had shared about your visual with the four babies, and it's absolutely incredible that you experienced that. That is quite a amazing gift and very intuitive on your part. I can't say that everyone remembers things like that, so that's wonderful. But is really they're letting you know that they're okay. They're nurtured. They're in the womb space. They're being nurtured by the nurturing mother energy, so you don't have to worry about them. They really came here to plant a seed for you. And essentially what that is, planting seeds to be able to get you to where you are now. Okay. 4 is the number of foundation, which would also relate to Aries as the emperor in tarot. The emperor is the number 4 card. So for babies that did not make it to Earth side, and then also with Rome being the 5th one, 5 is a very fun number. It's very transformational. And so he is the prize, essentially. He's the celebration. And so here he is. He probably has that sort of energy where he's
He
like,
does.
hey, look at me, guys.
Yeah.
Look at me. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting. I hope that some of that information is helpful for you in moving forward and maybe having some closure on that. So that's what I'm feeling. So thank you for sharing that. I know it's not always easy to share those experiences.
I
So I
actually
would,
find that it's like helpful to get it out.
yeah,
Um, because I think it's hard to process things when you keep it in.
yep.
So I always for me, it's very cathartic to like get it out and share for me.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so happy to hear that you're open to that because in society we're taught, especially as women, so, all the women listening to this, that we're starting to come around with that, with being more open about talking about our bodies, our periods, our hormones, if we do have baby loss, with being open, because for so many years and generation after generation, we have been taught to think that our bodies are gross or periods are gross or don't talk about that or, oh, she's just hormonal, that sort of stuff. So, I've been seeing this for years, and I'm sure that you have as well. And I have been on a path for a long time. Part of the reason why I created this podcast and talking to wonderful providers like yourself is that I'm here to help women to be able to feel comfortable talking about their journeys. And you should be able to. We shouldn't be in a society where we think that our bodies are weird or that we can't talk about traumas that we've experienced.
Totally. I told everyone, I told my team, I told my patients, like I told them I was going down fertility. I was telling them, where I was at in the process, the moment I was pregnant, when I missed it, like I was very open with everybody because if I was behaving in a certain way, I wanted them to have some empathy for me. I didn't want the added stress of, someone just being a jerk patient, right? Because maybe my reaction was not great. And so they were being a jerk back to me, or maybe I was off that day. So yeah, I shared with everyone. And I think it's more of like sometimes as women, we're afraid to make other people uncomfortable, right? And a lot of other people get uncomfortable when you talk about fertility and women's bodies and what happens to us. And for me, it's like, if I have to go through this, I also feel like, you got to be there right along with me. Like, it's not okay for me to carry this burden by myself. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of was ripping the band-aid off with people around me. And
Yeah.
I don't regret that at all. I received so much empathy and love and compassion from everyone that I told.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's great. And that's helping people around you too.
Hmm.
Remembering that your healing is helping others. And so being open is helping other people to feel comfortable with being open, even if it's not a
Yeah.
woman, maybe I know that you have people that work for you that are not always women as well, but it's teaching us all something. We can always learn something from each other. And so it is very powerful when we're open, and being in Aries with the leadership, you very much are here to really help people to learn how to be more comfortable really with in the spotlight, like
Yeah.
of being seen. Aries is very much about being seen and very comfortable with being seen. So, well, listen, Dr. Katie, I'm super excited to hear more about your health collective. I know that in a separate conversation we've talked about this, but I really want you to share with the listeners. I definitely have some people in the Denver area that listen, as well as people all over the world, but I know that this is not just for people local to Colorado, but I know that you are helping people all over the world, that it's a collective. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, as well as really what sparked your interest? Because I know it's not typical. I know that we talked about that it's something that you're a maverick. You're doing something different that others are not doing. Understand that. I'm the same. So it's very exciting. So I'm very excited to hear more about that.
Sure. So when I took time off, when I had my son, I decided to write a book called Saved by the Mouth, which is just all about oral systemic health and how the mouth affects virtually every organ system in the body. And being a book about oral health, I didn't expect it to go anywhere. It was just more of like a passion project for me as I was at home. But it did exceptionally well and took off. And then I had all these people reaching out to me on Instagram saying, "Where's your office? I want to come be your patient." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't have an office. I sold everything out. I'm not practicing anymore." And so I decided to do some kind of health coaching and consulting for some patients remotely via telehealth.
Mhm.
And then I just kept having more and more people saying, you should be teaching this to other people. You should be working with patients. And so I decided to open up. I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And so I decided to open up this massive health society, as you mentioned, in Denver. So it's a 15,400 square foot building. And it's an all encompassing health collective. So it's called Collective Health Society. It's where oral health meets total wellness. So the main clinic, Collective Health Society, is a dental, medical, fully integrated clinic where we function or where we focus on biological and holistic dentistry. We also have a functional medicine provider. I'm bringing in other specialists that focus on healing. We have women's health coaches. We have Reiki energy healers. We have myofunctional therapists, nutritionists. We have an IV infusion bay. We do sleep apnea, aligner therapy, myofunctional therapy for kiddos and for adults. And then upstairs, I have a training and education center where we'll be educating clinicians and patients all over the country just on oral systemic health practices. So we open in 30 days. So I'm really, really excited for that.
That's absolutely amazing. And it's interesting because let me just say it this way, as an acupuncturist, people don't always think, oh, spirit baby medium, intuitive medium, subconscious mind coach. So with you, it's the same. It's obviously different because we're in different professions, but both medical providers. And so you really are, that's why I say maverick, because you're really doing something that I've never come across anything like this, where you really have this integrative practice. We see integrative practice maybe with reproductive endocrinologists. They might have an acupuncturist on staff, or possibly a Reiki healer. That's probably somebody that's pretty open-minded. But you creating this and having like this fertility health center, and it's not only fertility. I know that you also are helping lots of people, but you do have quite a focus in fertility and helping people on fertility journeys. And so, really having this community for these people that you are meant to help is really it's just profound. I'm just so excited that we cross paths, and definitely to be able to send some of my own clients to you. And it's wonderful. I love I love, love, love hearing people creating things like this because we need more of this. You know that. You know
Yeah.
firsthand.
Well, and the whole idea is, how do we put all different types of providers in one area or one location for people to have access to care? Because usually when you're going down the science route, you see science providers, but even that's siloed. So you might have a primary care doctor, and then over here you have a chiropractor, and then over here you have a diabetic doctor, and they're not even in one location. Let alone if you're like, hey, well, maybe I want to go down this alternative healthcare provider route. And go, check those people out. But then even they are siloed. So you have a functional medicine doctor here, an acupuncturist here, a Reiki, they're kind of all over the place. And so what I was noticing in my dental practice is even though I was practicing oral systemic health, anytime I would need to refer a patient out to see a different type of provider, the answer was always, I can't find them. They're not in network. Who do I go see? Or they would go see someone and they'd say, your dentist is crazy. Like, tell her to stick to teeth. Like, none of this makes sense. And so I just thought, if I'm going to get into practice again, I'm going to bring all the different providers that I've had experiences with that have helped me into one location to increase access to care so we can help patients get their healthiest. So that's kind of what we're up to.
That's amazing. And we need that. We really need that.
I hope people like it. We'll see.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel that Denver's a great area for that.
Yeah. Denver is really open. Colorado in general is pretty open. So
it is.
If it's going to be anywhere, it should be here.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I mean, we're both from Chicago. And so, it's Chicago's great, but it definitely is not quite as open-minded as it is out here. So you definitely are in the right place. It's the right time for it. And Rome, he has really helped you to be able to see this vision. I just want to say that too, that he's a huge part of this. And I know that you already mentioned your book that came out September of 2023. So people, I'm guessing, can find that on Amazon if they want to check that out. And I will also include that in the show notes as well. Just real quick, I don't remember if you said this before, so if I'm repeating myself here, or we're repeating something you already said, I'd like to know, like, what sparked your interest to write your book?
It just literally was, I had been saying this stuff all day, every day. I had so many experiences with patients that came in having specific ailments, and we found a root cause that was contributing to it in their mouth. We treated their mouth, and their systemic ailment either improved or went away completely. And so when I stopped practicing, I didn't want those stories to die. Those success stories to die. And there's not a whole lot of people in this field, in dentistry, that are practicing this way. It is gaining a ton of momentum. And I felt like it was just really important to share a lot of that information because, again, being someone who went through fertility treatment in a very myopic type of viewpoint, we as dentists, we're only trained in a myopic way of practicing as well. And yet, we know the research is coming in that there's so many other things that oral health affects. And so, I just had a lot of time on my hands that I wasn't used to. So I said, let me just write all this down, and, put it out into the universe. And so that's exactly what I did. And, when you write a book, everyone says like, oh, well, what are you writing it for? Because usually books are to market your business or to market, something that you're selling. And I just kept saying, I don't have anything. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't have a practice. I don't have any services to market. And they're like, well, why are you doing this? And I said, I'm literally just putting this into the universe. And that's what I did, and then 2 years later, here I'm opening this big business. So I probably did it in reverse, but I've just followed, after my fertility stuff, I've learned to follow my intuition. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. The universe is not linear, okay? It's non-linear, you know that. So the fact that I do things backwards all the time, and it might not make sense to the masses, but okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's very unique and specific to your journey.
Yeah.
So it's great that you know that too, and that you trust yourself. That is probably one of the biggest goals that I have in helping people in their fertility journey, or just overall. I help a lot of other people like yourself, not just fertility, of that getting people to really trust themselves.
Yeah. If you can get quiet enough, and I don't, as you could probably tell, I don't get quiet very often. But if you can get quiet for a little bit of time, it'll the universe tells you what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dr. Katie, I would love it if you would share. I'm going to link all your stuff in the show notes. But okay, before I ask this question, I need to know or I want you to share with the listeners how they can actually find you.
Yes. So, two websites they should check out. My personal website is katieleedds.com. There's ways to reach me on that website. The new website for Collective Health Society is live. So it's collectivehealthsociety.com. We are taking requests for new patient appointments. So if anyone wants to come in and see me that way, they can. And then Instagram is always great. I'm always posting on that. My tag is Katie Lee DDS.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. I did check out your new website. It's absolutely beautiful.
Check it. It just got updated yesterday. So the full scope is live now. So check it out again and give me feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely will. I checked it out a few days ago. So if it's been updated, I will see some new stuff on there. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So I always like to do this at the end. Your story is so powerful. And so, Dr. Katie, do you have any last encouragement words or anything that you want to share with the listeners?
I would say the overall theme of my story, I guess, is don't be afraid to stand in your truth. Um, just be comfortable and confident in that and accept it. I don't know how you get to acceptance. That's probably your line of work that you can help people do. But we know what our truth is. It's just a matter of accepting it and then standing in it. And once you accept it and can stand in your truth, like I really feel like you're unstoppable at that point because you're in alignment. You feel totally in alignment with what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely really powerful. Well, listen, Dr. Katie, it was absolutely wonderful to have this conversation with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Amazing. And anybody that's looking for a wonderful provider in the area, as well as check out Dr. Katie's website, both of her websites. And I just can't say enough amazing things about her. She's incredible. So, as you know, you've been listening to her for the past hour. So, well, thank you again so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun.